Could you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Kindly introduce yourself briefly.
Good evening to everybody. My name is Vaibhav. I belong to Sonipat, which is a city in Haryana. I have done my schooling from here itself. Post that, I have done my graduation in history from Hindu College at University of Delhi, and then I have pursued post graduation in JNU. This is my third attempt for the civil services and my first interview.
Okay, what are your hobbies?
My hobbies are like I like to read international relations and be aware about that. And I'm also quite fond of the literature, Haryanvi literature especially.
Did you do political science or political science international relation from JNU or history only?
No, sir, I have done modern history for my master's.
Okay, great. Praveen sir?
Welcome, Vaibhav. Seeing that you have done history and that too from JNU, I have one question. Now we hear quite a lot about rewriting of history.
Yes, sir.
What do people mean when they say history? People are trying to rewrite history, and what are your views about that? Whether it should be done, should not be done, right or wrong?
Sir, rewriting of history is particularly used in the context when the textbooks, especially NCRT books, are being rewritten and is being changed. For example, some chapters are being deleted and some chapters are being added. The thing is that any change or updation in the curriculum is required. It is a part of a continuous process. It shall be done, but there has to be some peer review mechanism which we can make. There shall be some consensus based decision shall be made around how this is to be written, and most importantly, diversity of the perspective shall be included in the textbook so that it doesn't seem that one particular viewpoint is being pushed forward while writing the history.
No, those who are rewriting history claim that they may be right, they may be wrong. Claim that the way history has been written during British period and the first 3-4 decades of Indian independence, lot of traditional Indian stories have been lost and focus has been more on the conquerors and etc. Do you agree with it, or is it a wrong perspective, more of a communal perspective? What do you say about it?
Sir, as far as history writing is concerned, there has been the thing is that inclusion of Indian perspectives, the voices that have not been yet included, shall definitely be included, but this shall not come at the expense of exclusion of the others. So there is ample of scope in this discipline to include all the perspective and let the reader then make a decision while giving them all the facts and giving the reader the authority to make a better decision for themselves what they make of the past.
Okay, since you come from Haryana, there were a lot of issue of Chandigarh recently. 2-3 things happened of institution in Chandigarh and about Chandigarh. What were the issues? Can you explain between Punjab and Haryana this issue came in because of some institutions
Sir,
in Chandigarh?
sir, I'm not very sure of the recent happenings, but Chandigarh has been a conflict issue since 1966 when the state of Haryana was carved out of Punjab. This was because both of the governments, both of the states are claiming that Chandigarh belongs to them, and so that is why it was made a separate union territory uh, as a matter so that the conflict does not become much. But recently what government has done, I believe, is that now LG is to be appointed in Chandigarh also as against administrator. So there will be the state legislations and the state legislation, the position of the state legislature as regard to their as regard to what they can what decisions they can make about Chandigarh will probably be diluted, and that is why the state governments are against this decision of the central government.
Are you sure government has decided that LG should be appointed for Chandigarh? That decision is final or has been taken or under process? What is the status of that?
No, sir, I'm not sure of the status.
Okay. It was withdrawn by the government, by the way. Now coming to your one of the hobbies, you said Haryani folk music. I saw that you were interested in Haryani folk music. I always wondered why Punjabi folk music or Bhojpuri folk music has received pan-Indian popularity. Why Haryani folk music has not been able to do that? Any reason for that? Is it inferior music or what is the reason for that?
Sir, one thing is that commercialization of Haryanvi music has happened very late. So, for example, in context of Bhojpuri industry or Punjabi industry, it has been so they had that they had been in the they had been included in Bhojpuri in the Bollywood as well. So they did get that visibility vis-a-vis other folk musics. While Haryanvi music in that sense did not get that much amount of effort. Similarly, I believe that Haryanvi music has also not got enough importance, or Haryanvi literature, for example, from the academicians as well. So, in that sense, there is not much visibility around this particular thing. But now, Haryanvi music has, especially after 2016, with all this decentralization of content making, now such music, even folk music, is getting importance and is getting visibility in larger public
Is
sphere.
do you think migration may be one of the reasons for popularity of Bhojpuri or Punjabi and not of Haryanvi?
Yes, sir.
How,
That could
how,
also be
how,
one of the reasons.
how can migration be an issue? Can you explain to me?
So, for example, we have within internal migration that takes place within India. So, it is the Bhojpuri migrants are uh, there are they are much more in number when it comes to the interstate migration that is taking place. So, in that way, the cultural thing also gets transferred, and it gets, so one will be taking up their own culture in the new place also when they are migrating. So that is certainly true, but there is also one thing that for Haryanvi language, for example, there is a larger inferiority complex which certain section of the people have for Haryanvi music and Haryanvi folk music. In that sense, that I think that taboo also prevents people from expressing that liking for the Haryanvi folk music as compared to Punjabi music, which is a well-established industry, which has much names or model of singers to look forward. So that could also be the reason.
One last question. So you said that Haryana, that partition took place of the state in 1966. So has Haryana benefited from that, and in what sense it has benefited, if it has benefited from that, or it should have remained with Punjab, it would have benefited much more.
Uh, yes, sir. Overall, it would seem that Haryana has benefited. So one is the fact that that within when the identity of Punjab and Haryana, in that sense, that identity crisis could have then if it would have not been partitioned in 66, for example, then that identity clash would have taken place, given the Hindi politics in the Rohtak belt of Haryana, and given the Punjabi Suba politics of Akali Dal in the Punjabi segments. So one thing is that identity section was resolved. Secondly, Haryana has got uh, Haryana has got its name in context of getting more FDI for itself, getting better economic opportunity, given the fact that it is near the NCR region. So that factor also contributed to the development of Haryana, and the better economic and it could get better economic opportunities, which would have been otherwise would not have been the case. So its GDP growth has also surpassed, its GDP growth rate has exceeded what the growth rate for Punjab was during this region. Also, the fact that militancy, etc., took place in Punjab in 1980s. So that was the time when Haryana comparatively did well, very well, in context of its economic progress. So overall, I think Haryana has benefited from the separation.
Thank you, Aditi.
Hi, Vaibhav.
Hi, ma'am.
Yeah. What do you mean by dead drop emails?
Sorry,
Dead
ma'am.
drop emails.
Sorry, ma'am.
Are you
I'm not sure.
okay? You are like conducting various quizzes in your schools and various programs you have mentioned in your DAF. Are you
Yes, ma'am.
aware of this quiz master? Quiz master.
Yes, ma'am. The quiz masters. So shall I name them?
I wanted to know what are the criteria in determining the quiz masters? How do they determine?
So I do not know if there is a specific criteria or a written rule for it, but I think the quiz master in the competition, for example, in which I used to participate, one was that they shall not bring their own team, or they should not belong to a particular school. So they shall not be representative of that school and their team also participating. Also, their academic background is also one of the things.
Okay. Okay. Are you aware that census is going to be happened sooner? Now, 2026, we are planning for a census now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. And there was a recent saying that we have this rigid rural-urban divide. Like we just concentrate either as a town or as a rural place. Yes. And there is something known as UN degree of urbanization. What does that say so?
Ma'am, I didn't get the last point. There is.
UN degree of urbanization. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Okay. Are you aware that we are having a national population policy?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Can we have a uniform national population policy in India?
Ma'am, I think we still have a national uniform population policy only, which was given in 2000, which but the objectives, its larger objectives, has already been met, which was to reduce the total fertility rate to the replacement level of 2, and get a population stabilization by 2045. So in that sense, that NPP overall objectives have already been met, but yet there are some aspects, for example, the unmet needs of contraceptives, etc., which the government is still focusing on. So in that sense, we have a uniform policy, but I think the implementation, still we can have uniform objectives, but then implementation will have to take in the factor of the local needs and the local cultural ethos as well.
Okay. You said that, yeah, you need to have a uniform population policy. Recently, there was a report from Population Foundation of India telling that Kerala has touched the floor fertility rate of 1.4%, 1.4. That is a floor fertility rate, and it has reached it. And they have also projected by 2050, there will be only 12.4% of children in Kerala. Now, can we have a uniform national population policy there?
No, ma'am. In such a case, I think then we can make regional distinctions. For example, recently even other CMs from South were also asking their people to be reproducing more. And but we have to go along. The one thing is that we can still have a migration. The migration will still take place from the south to the north, because it is in the end one country. But that is also true that we cannot have a situation whereby one state population is considerably reduced at the extent of, let's say, the migration, etc., covering it up.
Okay. Okay, I'll ask on you another question. How can we teach history to small kids, like less than 10 years? How can we actually teach them history? Because they find that it is boring.
Yes.
How can we teach them so that it is so interesting that they learn by themselves?
One thing is that it has to be through the stories, the dates, the facts. The facts are secondary when it comes to history. It is larger story and the point that you are making. So if you are making people understand the broader areas, or connect it with the broader values, so especially for children, if you are trying to put in some values along with the history writing, along with the history teaching, if you are using those stories, then it is better to grasp their attention,
Okay.
rather than just putting in facts in front of them for a rote learning.
Okay. My last question for you. Now, US is putting us a lot of tariffs, like 50% of tariffs have been imposed on us by United States. And we have also reduced our imports from Russia and so on and so forth. And do you think that US tariff is actually getting into our strategic autonomy, that we are not following our national interest? Do you think so?
No, ma'am, I will not make that judgment that it is question it is trying, it might try. So the aim from the US side would be to maybe question at this particular policy. But as far as India's position is concerned, India has made it very clear in the numerous foreign secretariat conferences that India is going to decide every matter on its own issue, and India is not going to hyphenate the energy trade with Russia with the US trade policy. And India has simultaneously kept its line open with the US by still continuing that trade negotiations. So in that
Okay.
sense, India has not. Um,
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Vaibhav. So,
Thank you, ma'am.
Vaibhav, somewhere you said Haryana language suffers from inferiority complex of the people there. Did you make such a
Yes,
statement?
yes, sir.
What is the rationale behind your conclusion to say such kind of things?
Actually, sir, I referred it that it was the case. So because of which Haryanvi folk songs at least did not get a much broader visibility. The fact of this is that because in especially it is to do with the larger 1990s LPG, whereby there was a migration away from rural areas to the urban areas. So that idea of the marginal man, whereby the people within Haryana, so for example, who have migrated from the rural to the urban areas, so there is that competition, and there is that constant need to imitate what they were considering the superior. So in that context, uh, as a dialect, Haryanvi, yes, did suffer. I would say that, but then it has changed. So it
But
has
where does
changed
inferiority
now.
complex come? I'll stop you there. My question is very specific. How do you come to a conclusion that it suffers due to inferiority complex? Have you studied somewhere? Is there any research? But this is a very tall conclusion you are making, aren't you?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, you are right. I cannot then make a such a, so it might be my opinion, and it will not be then a major conclusion that I can bring to
Okay.
the table.
Now tell me, what are the like health indicators if you look at Haryana? Where does it stand if you compare with India health indicators?
Sir, I do not have specific data to substantiate, but for example, in sex ratio at birth, So there is this India, as compared to India, the sex ratio at the birth is still among the lower side in Haryana. So that I think I'm only aware about
Give
that.
numbers? Can you give numbers?
So, for example, in the recent National Family Health Survey, for India level, it was around 120 per thousand. So the women number was much more than the men. But while when it comes to Haryana, it's still in the 99, 910, 11, 12. So in the recent 3-4 years also, it has fluctuated within this range of 900, 900s.
What
So,
could be the reason for it, for the adverse sex ratio in Haryana?
sir, one reason is definitely cultural and the sun meta preference. So that will be the one reason. Second reason is that 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 the women still are being considered. So Haryana is largely a patriarchal society, like the rest of India, but uh, but the so the female child is being seen as a burden, and above all those sociological, those social evils of dowry, etc. So all of those actually then compel the people to see them as a second grade citizen, and not a, so the women are not valued as much as a male child. So that could be the reason.
But
Also the
again, I get a dilemma sometime, like sports women from Haryana,
Yes,
they've
sir.
done excellent job internationally. They come with
Yes,
so many medals. When you are talking about a Haryana where girls are not given the kind of prominence they should have, then how does that happen that some girls go out and they do so well, and particularly they come from rural Haryana? What is the
yes.
dichotomy?
Yes, sir. I think so. I think it explains the division within the society, like any society would have, because there is certainly then there is some section which would be thinking one way, but then there is a larger when we see a larger issue to explain, especially in this case of women not getting enough or equal rights and so on. So in that case, I think uh, it's difficult to explain it from. So it's basically, I think, the two sections and the different. There are the differences within the society.
Okay, my last question to you. Being a student of history, can you make a distinction between epic and history, Puran or Itihas?
Yes, sir. I think that history is basically, when it comes to as a discipline, it is a scientific writing which is based on the evidences, and on the basis of which the inferences or the interpretation is being made. So it is very clear that there is some evidence to back out what a historian is to be saying. While epics, on the other hand, they can become one of the sources for history writing, but the epics themselves do contain mythologies and exaggerations, etc., which a historian is to be mindful about while he is writing or making any comments on basis of that particular epic.
Do you think Buddha or Mahavir, they were historical persons, or you consider them to be part of the epics?
No, sir, I would like to uh, think that they were historical persons, given the fact that we have both archaeological sources as well as the historical sources, and even textual sources, that too they belonging to different periods and from different kingdoms, from different geographical regions. So all of them are corroborating their existence. So in that sense, they were historical figures.
Okay, that's all from me.